Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's Prize Pick Show. I'm Jeff Ketchum, joined by Alex Dunlap and Anwar Richardson. We are Orange Bloods Live. We will be talking about our predictions for Texas and Ohio State. We'll be talking about our favorite prize picks of the week. And the nation loves them some Matthew Golden. I can't wait to get to that. But first, like, comment, subscribe to the page. We do appreciate that. Jump into the chat. Super chat it up. We'll move you to the front of the line. But yeah, that's what we're doing. We're talking Texas and Ohio State. And literally right before we were coming on, Anwar and I and Alex were kind of reminiscing just over the last decade or so. And like, this is Anwar, forget about like how long you and Alex have both been working at Orange Bloods. This is the biggest game that Texas has played in since the Alabama Rose Bowl for the national championship back in 2010. There's no other game. If there was one, it would have been the Washington game from a year ago. And I know they're both in the semifinals, Anwar, but the magnitude of what Texas and Ohio State feels like on Friday night is different than what Texas and Washington did a year ago, when it felt like the winner was playing for the right to get their ass beat by Michigan. You know what I mean? It was like the winner of that game was, hey, consolation prize, you're number 2. And this feels like the winner of this game is going to be number 1. I'm convinced the winner of this game wins the national championship.
You know, what makes this more interesting, Catch, is that, you know, because there was 12 and now there's 4, you know, there is a little bit more anticipation because you've had a chance to see teams play recently, right? So previously it's like, okay, they played back in December, and then it's a month later. You kind of forget about certain things. It's like, it's been a while, but we have the recent, you know, Ohio State-Oregon game. We have the Texas-Arizona State game, and, you know, even to the sides with the Notre Dames and the Penn State games as well, right? So there is this familiarity with these teams. And I just saw this team a little bit ago, so there's a little bit more anticipation. And to your point, from a magnitude scale, yeah, even last year, it was like, okay, but this, I didn't feel last year, Catch, that this team could be 2 wins away for winning a national title. I'm like, all right, well, you got Washington. Okay, cool. And if you get past Penix by somehow, then you're going to you just get the right to get your ass kicked by Michigan. And this one is kind of like, it's interesting because you look at it and say, Ohio State has looked vulnerable at times. And, of course, they lost against Michigan, a team that Texas beat. And it's here in the state of Texas, right? So, and it's a big game for Sark. It's a big game for Ryan Day. And, you know, and so, yeah, this for me, out of anything that I've covered, and, you know, Alex goes back to whatever that GIF is or video of Alex, you know, I was at the Rose Bowl.
That was the Michigan Rose Bowl, wasn't it?
That one was before. I forgot. Was that Justin Tucker that was the kicker for? No, it was
Dusty Mangum.
Dusty Mangum. Yeah, that he was lining up for that kick versus Michigan whenever they caught me on camera.
So Alex has bigger game memories than myself. Yeah. I'll say.
Welcome. They're nice to have. I'm glad that after all this time,
I'm glad I've lived long
enough. Because I sold you on the idea that there were going to be big games at Texas, and we get one Friday night, Anwar. And I've been getting more excited. What about you, Alex? As this game gets closer, it feels like a big NFL game. That's what it feels like. And as Anwar was talking, it's so crazy to think about, like, what if the NFL took a month off and then just played the conference championship games and then the Super Bowl? That sounds so foreign, because by the time we get to the conference championship games, even if it feels like when the teams get to the Super Bowl, it's like, well, they earned it. They had to win the division game at a minimum. They had to win the conference championship game. Maybe they had to go on the road. And it feels like a real journey is taken to get to the Super Bowl. Whereas I think Anwar is right. It felt like last year, Texas and Washington showed up and they played in the playoff game. But I don't know. There's just a non-natural feeling to it compared to how we're programmed. And now that we're in it with college, it's like, oh yeah, this is how this is supposed to go down and feel. And I think Anwar is exactly right. There's something that we've never seen before. It's truly unique that the semifinals will take place tonight and tomorrow. And we saw these teams play a week ago. So we're building off of what's been done, as opposed to, hey, a month ago, these teams finished as the best in college football.
Yeah, man. I think that. Well, I think that the playoffs certainly. I think with these matchups, I still think that there's stuff. I mean, I'm not going to forget about how tilted I was to start this whole playoff thing with the seeding and everything. I think there are things that they still need to change. But I mean, yeah, we got it, and now we're here in the Final Four, and I think it makes a lot of sense what you guys are saying because on somebody could say, well, it's not. It's not the biggest because it has to be tied with last year because they're just back in the Final Four, right? Um, uh, also, what I say is I agree with you guys. It's like it feels, they played 2 games in a playoff to get here, right? It's like if you go play those 2 games, win those 2 games, all just to come to the semifinal and lose, like that does feel. It just feels like more hinges on this football game. I don't know. It's certainly. Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to I think you're right, Catch. It's like I don't think maybe there's no real argument about it. That it's the biggest since that 2009 season. I guess the game was in 2010. Just a monster, dude. I don't know about you guys. I'm still not confident in my prediction. I'm about to have to give it. And I wrote it into Jason. I'm still not confident in it. I think this game could go any which way but loose, man. It's going to be. I'm going to be interested to hear what you guys even think, or if you have like a ton of conviction, or whether I'm on an island, which is like not knowing.
So, Alex, I have had the same score all week long. It has not changed. It will not change. I sent it into Jason. So, it's a 1-point game is what I'm predicting. So, I mean, it tells you without even revealing it yet. I think these teams are razor close. Like they're so close that the thin margins that might determine the game. Anwar was asked, has this team, the underdog mentality? He had a source in the war room last night say, man, we played a lot of games and we don't really need emotional help at this point in the season, but it doesn't hurt. And in a game where I think could get decided by a point or a field goal at the end or something like that, it'll be fascinating to see tomorrow night what ends up being what we think is the slim margin that decides which one of these two teams wins. Because I think it's a coin flip.
It feels as much like I just don't. I can't get over this idea of and I'm not going to talk myself into a different prediction here, but I can't get over this idea that we started out this season talking about maybe Georgia was included too, because at that point we didn't really know that Carson Beck was going to stink the way that he did. But, we talked about Ohio State. We talked about Texas. We talked about Georgia being the most expensive and most talented rosters basically in the country, right? It's just like that. And this was something that we talked about from the very beginning, about previewing this kind of thing, even down to the whole thing about possibly meeting in the semifinals in Dallas, Texas, and Quinn getting to play Ohio State in his home city, and just all this stuff, right? For it to have come to this, it was I'm not saying that this was always in the cards, or this was, but the fact that it sort of come to this, and it was something that we could have reliably looked back at and said, like, well, some people were even predicting this kind of down to the game and down to the matchup. It goes to show you that, like, man, the way that we're perceiving Ohio State right now, just because it feels like they've just gone into God mode over the last 2 weeks, right? I mean, recency bias is a real thing. But when you look at these two rosters and you look at the ways that Texas can match up in certain areas, we're talking about a team that has basically two backup offensive linemen that are having to play in this football game, going up against a defensive line that has two basically NFL guys in the middle. And then from what, I think Cody's right when he says this is the best sort of edge group that was even in the whole playoffs to begin with. So you have that kind of matchup with the offensive line that people aren't really accounting for. Can Will Howard are they going to be able to get Jeremiah Smith open on these deep routes? I think he's going to hurt you to some degree. I mean, they're going to strike blood between those three wide receivers somehow, but can they affect him? Can they not do what Oregon did? With just, letting this guy go bananas in the second meeting. there are other matchups I'm sure that we can talk about throughout the course of the show. And I know that Jason has his matchups column up on Orange Bloods that you guys should check out. But this is like, to think that this is like, this is, the Sisters of the Poor, like kind of charity matchup versus Ohio State is the most ridiculous thing ever. I think that the line is too big. I think what the books opened up with at like 4.5 probably seemed a little bit more right. But to me, this has always felt like a field goal kind of game.
Well,
So
Alex, I think if this game's played 2 weeks ago, Texas is a 2.5 point favorite.
what?
I think if this game's played 2 weeks ago, so the last time we would have seen Ohio State was the Michigan game.
Okay.
I think Texas is a betting favorite in this game.
Oh, yeah. With Ohio State coming off a loss? Absolutely.
I think the last 2 weeks have changed the prism through which people are viewing this potential matchup. And I'm not sure they should. Anwar, I don't know what the right thing to do is. Do you look at the totality of these teams having played 14, 15 games and you say, over the course of these games, they've been up and down, and some weeks you know who you're getting, and the next week it's like, oh, you almost lose to Nebraska if you're Ohio State. And I would argue that Texas didn't have those moments this year, that, there weren't many games that we looked at and went, woo, man, they barely got past Arkansas. Like they kind of handled their business. Or do we just watch the last 2 weeks and say Texas has played okay? They've been solid. And I don't know they're getting enough credit for beating the ACC champions and the Big 12 champions. I mean, that's not nothing.
Yeah.
But yet everybody's looking at what Ohio State does. And it's fair because they've been tremendous. And it's like, well, then that's the thing. And it's like, I don't know. As I've looked at this game, I lean more towards these two teams are very even. There's ebb and flows in the seasons. And if you're Texas, maybe you've got lucky that you missed Ohio State next week because they've not been a team that would indicate, like, doing this 3 times in a row would be, because if you throw that Tennessee performance in, like Alex said on where they've been kind of in God mode. But does that mean they do it this week too? Because everything else about the season suggests they're more likely to have a dip than to continue ascending.
The thing is, as I hear it though, I go back to, someone put in a super chat, I think it was on Monday, and it's a little thing, but it's stuck with me all week long, and I haven't been able to shake it. And I forget how he worded it, but it's basically, he's like said, Ryan Day has been Ryan Day's entire career, and we're supposed to believe like this is the time that he's not going to be that basically that Ryan Day who makes mistakes in big games. And then, yes, they've looked good over the last couple of weeks, but Catch, if you go back, to that Michigan game, Ryan Day made some mistakes. He doesn't use like a timeout before a 2-minute warning. They get like a penalty for like illegal substitution, and they get like Michigan gets like a first down. And for the most part of his career, like he's been great in the regular season, and then he gets to the postseason and just things happen. Things absolutely happen with him, and I gotta just kind of wonder: is this the game where Ryan Day doesn't make some crucial mistakes at key moments? And I don't know. Sometimes I feel like a guy is who he is. And so that becomes the thing for me is he just somehow going to, in the most crucial moments, make the smartest decisions? I'm just not quite sure that he will, because he's kind of shown us throughout his career, not really. I mean, if you're Texas, forget icy whites, just wear Michigan blues and you've got this thing wrapped up, But that's my only thing about Ryan Day. I know they're super talented. Like we can go across the board, but I'm still wondering, like, and again, that word that Alex uses, that transient properties kind of thing. I know it doesn't necessarily always apply, but Michigan, we saw this Michigan team, man, and that team beat Ohio State. That's the thing that I look at and I go, it's kind of like that Rocky movie, right? When he's starting to get hit and he's like, and it's after the bell, he's just yelling, "You're not so bad. You're not so bad. You're not so tough," right? It's kind of feel about Ohio State. I just don't know. It's hard for me.
I've said all week, I think I've said for weeks actually that, and maybe Alex, you'll remember this. I was just saying that, if we broke all 12 teams into 24 different offense and defensive units. So we took the 2 offenses and defenses from all 12 teams in the playoff, and we had a snake draft, and we were drafting units. I think Ohio State's defense and Texas's defense go 1 and 2, no matter what, as the 2 best units in the playoffs at the start of the playoffs. And now we're in this matchup. There's 4 teams left. And if we did the same exercise and ranked all of the remaining sides that are left, it would still be Texas's defense and Ohio State's defense in whatever order you want to take them in. I saw Jason. I'm curious to see what his score is going to be. But earlier this week, he did his 3-2-1 column, and he had like 31-27 or something like that. And I just feel like this is going to be it just would really surprise me that if in the biggest game of the season, the 2 best units end up being the 2 worst units, that a game that's played in the upper 20s or even into the 30s would mean that, to me, these 2 defenses didn't hold up their end of the bargain for what our expectations are for them. So I've looked at this all week as, I don't care what anybody says. You might want to take some lowers and lesses on PrizePicks. And if someone gets to 20, I think that's the winner. That it might not take 20 to get there, but I can see that if someone gets to 21st, maybe that's it. Because I just don't think there are a lot of points beyond that. Does anybody or either of you guys have a winner in the 30s? Look, before we give me who you were picking to win, what's the winning point total for both of you?
24.
20.
So Anwar and I are a little bit more on the someone gets to 20, they win. Okay, well then let's jump into it. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. I think it's 24-21, and I think Texas wins on a last second Bert Auburn field goal. It's just to add all the hand wringing, as much white knuckle as possible. That's what this team is like. That's what this team has given us. Right? It's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be really tough, and it's gonna be the toughest right at the very end. It's probably gonna be like a 42-yard field goal that you don't feel any good about.
It's the Scott Norwood kick. It's like, I really don't know.
Like, well, they're just in this spot. They can't go for it. If he misses, they go to overtime anyway. But heck, send him out there. Ices it. So that is my prediction.
You and I talked about. We talked about my pick, but I don't know what you're doing.
I'm going Texas 20-16. The reason is I'm just convinced that it is what it is with this Texas team. I'm just going to go unscientific for a moment. I just feel like they're just frustrating team that you're going to watch throughout the game. And you're going to be like, what the hell is happening? Where's the run game? Why did someone jump off sides? Like, who dropped the pass? What happened to them in the third quarter? There's a missed field goal. And at the end of the day, there's some game-winning drive at the end. They pull it out, and it's over. Like, that's been Texas all year long. And it is not the formula that is fun to watch. It gives everyone heart palpitations. It makes people drink heavily, makes people use a lot of road products. At the end of the day, Sark is like, what's the problem? We won. Like, I don't know what everyone's so upset about. We won another game. And I just think no matter what I'll say, I think they win. And at the end of the day, I still remember this is still a Texas team that people thought didn't really have a chance against Alabama last year. And I know that was a last year team, right? But I think this defense is better than last year's defense. Okay. And people thought going into Tuscaloosa, this team didn't have a shot. And how possibly could they win? And when it was all said and done, we saw a Texas team that rose up and pretty much was kicking Alabama's ass in the fourth quarter. I'm not saying that they're going to do that particularly to Ohio State, but it feels the same. where everyone's doubting this team and they're saying, man, they don't know have a shot to win. And if you just, last thing I'll say is when you look at Sark's history and his history of losses over the past 2 years, that Georgia loss, regular season loss, was probably the worst. And everything else is a one-possession game. So if you tell me Sark's got a chance to win it in the fourth quarter, I'll just go with Sark. I'll go 2016 Texas.
Alex, God damn you guys. I really needed Anwar to go Ohio State. Then I picked Texas. And then I can make up a game in the standings of the pick'em for the season.
But then pick Ohio State.
Well, because I've not changed my pick. I thought all week long I was going to be the only guy that picked Texas. I thought you were going to pick Ohio State.
I thought about it, but I tell you that thing that guy said on Mondays has been ringing in my ear. I'm like, I think Ryan Day is going to make a mistake. I know Texas might make a mistake, but I think Ryan Day is going to make one too.
Well, Alex, you're going to love. You and I are on the same page, but different. I'm going Texas 17, Ohio State 16, and Ohio State misses a field goal as time expires.
Okay.
That's so I'm not going with a Burt Auburn game. Quite honestly, I went with Burt Auburn hitting a game-winning field goal in my SEC championship game prediction.
Oh,
so I'm not doing that again because
it's not bad juju.
Because that would be 2 times in 4 games that I predicted a very average kicker at this point.
You had a chance to be correct 2 times.
Well, and I wasn't. All that means is I was wrong twice, Anwar.
Yeah.
I think it's that close. And I think everything that Alex described in that final moments is exactly the way I see it, except I think a kick is missed instead of made. And but in terms of game texture, in terms of final 5 minutes, in terms of
heartburn,
in terms of I wish we had it to reference, but in terms of like everybody, millions of people feeling like Alex did before the Dusty Mangum kick in the Rose Bowl against Michigan, where they put Alex on television and he just looks like he's feeling it. And I think everybody's going to feel that way. Texas fans, Ohio State fans, it's going to be incredibly tense. The more low scoring these games are, the more every time you have a chance to put points on the board, it feels life or death. And I think it's going to be that kind of a game. And I think Texas is going to win 17-16, but it could, I think this is the least confident. This is even more than the Georgia games, because I think I'd kind of talked myself into Texas is better than Georgia. But after the second game, it was like they might be, but they don't match up well with Georgia. And that styles make fights, and that's the guy they don't want to fight. I think Ohio State is – Alex mentions that Ohio State offensive line. My expectations are that the Texas defensive line is going to have a dominating performance tomorrow night. But I kind of also expect Ohio State's defense to be pretty dominant tomorrow night. So if Anwar is right and they get to 20, I'll almost be a little surprised. That would mean that what do I got? I've got 3 touchdowns being scored in this game. That's it. I've got 2 on the Texas side to get to 16, 1 on the Ohio State side. It's like, do I really think there's going to be 4 or 5 touchdowns in this game? I'm not convinced. You guys want to look at the PrizePicks?
Yes, sure.
Oh, so I did this with Alex earlier before you came in, Anwar. The number 1 prize pick, college football prize pick of the week so far is a Texas player. I'm going to give you 3 guesses as to the play. Now, if you've looked at it, this doesn't work. But
it doesn't work.
It doesn't? You've looked?
I pulled it up just about. I can't. I would love to fake it, but I can't BS you. I looked. You can. You
would not have guessed.
I would not have guessed it though. I would not have guessed it. No, not at all.
Matthew Golden receiving yards 65.5 is the big one. Let me see. I'm gonna pull these up, and I think I can see. All right, here we go. First batch of Texas prize picks. And we're starting with the running backs. Whole lot of Trey Wisner and a little bit of Ryan Wingo here. My God, it is a big game. We've got 4 Ryan Wingo plays here.
Oh, my God.
I really like Trey Wisner, 57.5. That we've gone from they've been listing him in the 90s and the hundreds down to 57.5.
You like him after last week?
I don't know that I like Texas running the ball at will, but I like it's a very manageable number. Although I have to say, I might like the Wisner 14.5 rush attempts a little better. You know, that number is up towards 17, 18. I don't know, but 14.5. Alex, you got a favorite out of all this? If I have to pick one, I'm going Wisner more on the 14.5.
Do you think that they're going to get the run game back on track?
No, but I don't think they're going to give up on it. And I don't think it's going to be like Arizona State last week where Texas finishes quarters with 5 and 6 plays.
That's good. Yeah, that 14.5 is good. That's the best one.
I mean, all you've got to do is get that number up to 10, and Wisner's going to get his carries.
It's looking more and more like Cam Williams is going to be back. I mean, I thought when I saw him with Sunday practice, I was like, that guy's going to play, right? Bond was the one that looked like he was just night and day different from what we've seen before. But Cam at least was looking like he was, much more comfortable than he was in the videos that Anwar took from the pregame and from what we saw. And like, he looked much different than that. And he was working with the ones. And so I think he's back. And I wrote a column on this week at Orange Bloods, but man, he as good as Goosby's been, and he's been incredible. He's probably going to go to the draft next year, but Cam Williams is just much better in the run game. What's been so good about Goosby is he's been really good in the run game, and he's been maybe even better than Cam Williams as far as in pass protection. But Cam Williams has been really good in pass protection, but he's even better in the run game. And so having him back, being able to run to that side, having him on the play side where he really just takes those guys to the sidelines, man, in the outside zone game. I think they're going to get a little bit more going with it. And so if we think about that and we just think about the script that Sark would like to employ here, well, what would you like to employ? I would personally like to keep Jeremiah Smith and Quinshawn Judkins and Travion and Carnell Tate and Emeka Buka off the field for as long as I possibly can. Take the air out of the football if possible. We've seen that Sark loves winning ugly. So, yeah, dude, and there's the other part where they still have, I don't know whether they still haven't gotten over the stuff with Jaden Blue with the fumbles and everything, whether that just kind of is stuck with him, or whether it's just the fact that they just think that Trey Wisner is better. But Jaden Blue's become a specialty weapon, right? He's like, if they're going to feed a guy, it's going to be Trey Wisner. And so I think that 14.5 rushing attempts, actually, now that I've thought about it more and more, makes a ton of sense. And I'm with you, Catch. That's the best one on this board.
Yeah, and the thing is, Stark is always going to be dedicated to the run, and if things start getting a little, crazy, well, he kind of leans on that a little bit more. So, and Catch too, I think if given the opportunity and they are ahead, last week they decided that they're going to throw the ball, that resulted in interception, and he went away from we just going to run it, run out the clock because that's how good we are. I don't think he'll do that again.
Yeah. No, I think there aren't. This is, the thing about this game is I don't know how many, we're going to go through them. I don't know how many plays I'm going to love. How many trees am I going to be like, put significant amounts of money on this entry? I really love the Wisner, though, 14.5. If that thing was at like 17.5, I feel like we're in no man's land. But I could easily see Wisner rushing 15 times for 50 yards or 16 times. You know what I mean? Like, I don't stay away from the yardage. I have no idea how that's going to work for Texas and whether or not they're going to have any success at all. But they're going to try. And Alex, you're 1,000% right. Coming off that monster game that he had against Clemson, and on a day when the offense was not able to be on the field, like they shelved Jaden Blue in the running game. And Wisner didn't get the volume that we would have expected because the offense wasn't on the field as much. But from a sharehold standpoint, it continues to be one-sided in these games that I think Sark feels like. I mean, that tells us what he thought about. Well, Wisner got hurt, so they had to play Blue and they had to play Gibson, and it is what it is. But if they don't have to play Blue, I mean, Sark has kind of told us that he won't. We've got some more now. So let me go to the second screen. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Here we go. The nation's favorite, Matthew Golden, the number one player. Almost 30,000 people have played this Matthew Golden 65.5 receiving yards. That number feels really well placed. I don't know. I'm staying. Well, look, that Red Devil 4.5 receptions. That's not terrible. The Red Devil touchdown 0.5. We know that Golden, if anybody's going to get in the end zone, it's sometimes him. I don't know, man. I look at this board, Anwar. What do you love? Anything?
What's crazy is that they don't have an Isaiah Bond thing as well. So that's interesting. The interesting part, it's a couple of things. I think I might like the fantasy score for Golden just a little bit more because we know that guy scores. And so, if you had, again, 60 and a touch would be pretty good. Then again, I might be asking a little bit too much. So I'm going to take that one back because that may require a touchdown. So,
well, hold on, Anwar. Alex, help me out with the math on this, okay?
Yep.
So they've got Golden at a 12.5 fantasy score. Now it would appear that they think the right reception number is 4. Man, they've got that as a Red Devil. If we were just looking at a reception number that didn't involve Devils, is that number 3 or 4? Because it looks like they're implying, let's say 4 receptions for 65.5 yards. So that gets you to 11.
Yeah, but you got to put it. You got to. What is he? Is he 1/3 of a touchdown? Is he?
That's what I'm asking you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what do we? It feels like maybe there might be value in that fantasy score.
Yeah, it's just like, do you think he has all right? So if I would imagine that the 4.5 receptions is the Red Devil. I bet, and they don't let you flex that thing. So basically, what they think is that 3.5 is too low. So they think it's going to be 4 receptions. So 4 receptions for 65.5 puts you at 10.5. So they have him at 1/3 of it and then 2 points. So they have him at 1/3 of 1 touchdown. So if you think he has a better chance than 1 in 3 of scoring a touchdown, then you should take the fantasy score. If you think that the projections are right, but you don't think he's a 33% chance to score a touchdown, then you would just want to take one of the other ones. And I think that the Red Devil reception, the thing is about the Red Devil receptions, though, is that they're not factoring in Bond.
Yeah.
I think Bond's kind of back.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look, from your mouth to God's ears, but I will need to see that first. I feel like, I do feel a little bit like the little boy who's cried wolf with regards to Bond. So, I mean, God, it might be the difference in the game if they could get that guy literally 85% of Bond. Like, that's a weapon.
Yeah.
Did he go from 70 a week ago? I don't know. I don't know how to look at it. Onward, though, I got to admit, I think your instincts on that fantasy score aren't wrong. But I think Alex is right. I think it comes down to, if you think there's a better than 33% chance that he gets into the end zone in this game, you might take that Golden fantasy score and pair it with something and like, you got to look at that one as, because a lot of times I try to take my sure things and I pair them together. And then there's like a next round of picks where it's like, I kind of want to play these, but I don't necessarily think they're all going to hit or whatever. And like, those are the ones that you aim for the moon. You know what I mean? You put 6 of them together, include that Matthew Golden fantasy score. Because I think if they played this game 10 times, how many times I think more than 5 times Golden breaks 12.5.
Yeah.
But if Bond is back, the thing is, and Anwar, you reported this literally in February. So it's been almost 11 months. Quinn likes throwing the ball to Matthew Golden. He just does.
Yeah.
He just does. When you reported it like in one of the early war rooms of 2024, that Golden was the guy that he had really kind of struck a relationship with. And I don't think Arch has it with Golden the way, like, that is a Quinn Ewers, Matthew Golden. Those dudes are going to be talking to each other when they're 70 because those guys have a connection. So I don't know. You both have talked me into, I'm doing something with that Golden play. I don't know how I'm pairing it up yet. I wouldn't want to, here's what I wouldn't do with that Golden fantasy score. I wouldn't pair it with like a freebie. You know, if there's like a 0.5 Patrick Mahomes passing yards or something like that, don't pair the gimme with, that's a risky play, but I think it could be a good one. I'm going to definitely use it. Anwar, as it relates to Quinn, I don't know.
Tough.
I might go less on the 1.5 touchdowns just because of the stop. If I think the game is 17-16, and I think that now your situations, we both have Texas scoring 2 touchdowns, but I don't know what the statistical probability is that both will be Ewers touchdown passes.
That's a tough one too. I mean, he threw 3 last week, right? But then it was 1 against Clemson, 1 against Georgia, 1 against A&M. So, you know, it's one of those, do you think?
And he got 2 of them in overtime.
Yeah, well, fair, right? I mean, fair. Yeah, with the Quinn stuff, I could see the thing about Quinn from a yards perspective is that those numbers can add up really quickly with him. Like it could just be, we've seen it how many times. It's just you're at 80 yards, you're like, oh, and then next thing you know, he's at like 212 and 250. You're like, what the hell just happened here? Like you blink and one good quarter of Quinn, and he's put up 100 plus, right? So the yards, where's he at for the yards? It's kind of blocking me a little bit.
243.5. PrizePicks has done a good job with the numbers.
They've employed some really good people this year. I'm not gonna lie. Like they fired whoever the people were from last year, and they've employed some really good ones. But
now you could go Green Goblin on Ewers at a $199.5 passing yards. So if there's an Ohio State pick that you loved and you wanted just to make some money and play one of these Green Goblins, I don't hate 199.5. That, considering the regular number is, Jesus, what do we got? Oh, they've got, you know what they've got? They've got a Green Goblin at 199.5. They've got a Green Goblin at 219.5. They've got a Red Devil at 274.5. And they've got a Red Devil at 299.5. So they've gotten crazy with these Ewers numbers. Obviously, you get a higher payout on the Red Devil if you go all the way up to 299. I would not do that, people. But I might like that Green Goblin at 219.5. I got to see what it does in terms of value, but I don't know, man. It's no fun to tell people to take lesses on this, but I'm leaning. I'm leaning on more lesses than I'm leaning not lesses. Let me show you our last 3.
By the way, I would just say this too, Catch, as I'm kind of
you want me to put anything back up?
No, you don't have to put anything back up. But I will say that in a losing effort a couple of weeks ago, Dylan Gabriel did throw for 299 against this Ohio State defense. So, I mean, there is something to be said for that I don't think they've faced. they haven't faced really good quarterbacks throughout this season. If you just look at their schedule, they haven't faced
very similar to Texas.
Yes, and when they faced the best quarterback that they faced has been Dylan Gabriel, and I believe he's been fine in both of those games. Again, 300 in the last game. And I can tell you real quick what he did in the first game. So that would be the only thing for me is where I may go a little bit more for them. Let me tell you what Gabriel did in the first game, and he did 341 in their first game. So he averaging a little over 300 yards of passing. So if you think
they've got to have Bond back,
well, exactly. Now they got weapons, but if you think from a passing perspective, Quinn and Dylan Gabriel are about level playing field, then I would do the more on Quinn.
All right, we've got one more set of UT plays because there's a ton of them. And Ohio State has even more than Texas. Looking at the Gunnar Helm stuff, they've got the longest reception set up at 19.5. Those bastards. God, man, they are so inconsistently using Helm right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's any gimmies. 45.5 on the receiving yards.
Do you think at all that are they going to use? They're just going to use Downs however they can, just make sure that he's being utilized all over the football field, right? It's not like you worry about that matchup with Helm. I don't, right? Or do you?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So I was gonna. I'm
telling you, like this, the PrizePicks done a really good job this week because I find myself, like I've got a 17-16 game, right? So you look at Bert Auburn's points; they've got him at 5.5 kicking points. I've got him at 5. Like they are on it. I don't really love any of that DeAndre Moore stuff that's up that they've got. Gunnar Helm, I'm not sure. And Jaden Blue's numbers are so low. I think the one that I like is Jaden Blue, 7.5 longest reception.
Oh yeah, I think that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's good. He's going to get 4 targets, and you know what he can do whenever he gets the ball in his hands. It's like that's the thing about Blue was when you watch him and you're just like, golly, do you forget he's really fast and very, very explosive player. So I think that 7.5 for the longest reception. I'll have to look and see. Do they know something about it? Like I can just picture in my head. It feels like every week he catches a ball and he darts off for like 20 yards. But I'll pull up his stats just to see. Maybe the receptions haven't been.
It's more inconsistent than you think.
Okay.
Like I think I played him. I think I played Blue with the longest reception in the A&M game, and I think he had 2 catches in that game. But like I had to wait. There was one game recently where it was a very modest number, and I didn't do longest reception. I did total receiving yards, and they had
this is like a lock, dude. So he's only gone under 7 for his longest reception 3 times this whole season. His longest reception had been dating back to this Colorado State game: 15, 23, 3, 10, 11, 17, 16, 45, 17, 5, 7 versus UGA, where he just wasn't used really at all. He had 2 carries and two receptions in that football game. His long reception was 0. And then the last 2, it's been 21 versus Clemson and 11 versus Arizona State.
Say no more. I'm before it gets changed.
Yeah,
I have that paired with Wisner's rush attempts. We'll see so those are my 2 favorites so far.
I'm getting those in too, Catch. You're right. They're going to change them. So let me get in on this.
I don't know. We have to find a non-UT.
We're going to need to find somebody to pair it with. Yeah, that's what
I'm definitely, those are my 2 that I'm most excited about. All right, fellas. Let's do this now. We won't have to spend as much time, obviously, but here's Ohio State. As I look at these, God, I'm just not an expert on Ohio State to the level of like, I don't know what to do with Travion Henderson. because they've got 2 running backs and they don't use them the way Texas. It doesn't feel like there's a timeshare with Judkins and Henderson the way that there is, as opposed to the one-sidedness of and then there's Will Howard. What I will take, you know what? God, if I think 17-16 is what I really think is going to happen, then I think you look at the Will Howard numbers and you got to take some less on these. 265 against the best pass defense in America. They've got Will Howard at 250 passing yards. God, that feels like a sucker bet. Like, I will take the less and then he'll throw for 275. What about 30.5 pass attempts? Isn't that a lot?
That's a ton. I mean, if he's throwing it over 30 times, I mean, Texas has a significant lead, don't they?
I would think so, because they were kicking Texas. Here's what I'll do. I'll pull up Will Howard's ESPN stat page. I doubt that they've put that number there loosey-goosey, but I'm curious what Howard in games that were lower scoring. Let's see. I'm just doing what Alex just did with Jaden Blue.
It looks like at least what he's. I mean, I'm looking at this, and I haven't.
You got to go way under. He's only gone over that number 3 times this season. He was 26 against Oregon. He was 29 against Tennessee. He was 33 against Michigan, but then it was 26, 24, 26, 24, 16, 35 against Oregon, but that was a 32-31 game.
Yeah.
And then 25, 31, 20, 26, 28. So a little bit like the Blue, he's gone over the number 3 times this season. Michigan, which is strange that he threw it so much in a 13-10 game. 35 against Oregon in what was a high-scoring 32-31 game. And then 31 at Michigan State when they won 38-7. I'm taking the less on that right now. Right now. Give it to me. There's my Ohio State pick to pair with Wisner and Blue. I'm going Will Howard less than 30.5 pass attempts. And what's the amount? What do I throw on this, Alex?
Is
this a 50er, or do I go with my convictions? And
if I could just bet Wisner and Blue, those are the 2 that I know about, man. I know about this team. Those are good. If I could just use those 2, I'd throw $100 at this thing. But I'm looking at if Texas is going to be able to. Well, if Texas does what Texas wants to be able to do, do they really want to dare Will Howard to be one-dimensional and say, nanny boo-boo, we stopped the run, like now you got to throw it to Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka? I'm not sure that they want to do that. But the goal, I guess, is always to make the other team one-dimensional. And I would say that whenever you want to take these overs or these hires or these mores or lesses, whatever, on quarterbacks, you generally want to do it when you feel like they're going to be in trailing game script. Whereas on the other side, you take the running backs with the mores for their rushing attempts. And so I would say that at least it makes sense from a correlation standpoint, because we already have the Wisner pick in for the over on the rushing attempts.
I just went 50 to win 250 with Wisner, Blue, and the under on the less on the well. Now there may be some other picks that I'm looking at that I'll like, but I went ahead and entered that one.
What do y'all think about the Jeremiah Smith stuff?
I'll pull it up. Here it is.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just on PrizePicks now. I'm just starting to look and see what I can pick here. So
here you go. So they've got Jeremiah Smith having a day. And you can see everybody's getting in on. There's that little fire icon on the receiving yards. I'm staying away from that. He did not week in and week out hit 85.5 receiving yards. Like, he's pretty good for like more than 70 because I use Jeremiah Smith on the receiving yards almost every week on PrizePicks during the season. And, he wasn't doing what he's done the last couple of weeks, certainly last week. Every week, he's kind of peaking. So maybe these numbers are where they are for good reason. And he's special. I mean, Alex, 3 of the 4 services ranked him as the number 1 player in the country this past year, which means they think he's the best NFL draft prospect. And 3 recruiting services asked themselves, who do we think in 3 years is going to be the number 1 pro prospect in this class?
Oh, I mean, he might be the first wide receiver off the board if he could come out this year.
He's incredible. So do you think Texas will shadow him at all, or are they just going to play their defense?
Texas doesn't really have these guys follow dudes.
I know.
They haven't faced a guy like Jeremiah Smith. I was talking yesterday with Anand Nanduri, who's a guy that goes to all these Ohio. He's our friend, but he's a giant Ohio State fan and stuff, and he goes to all the practices, and I think he donates a bunch of money to him. But I was asking him how he would do it, and he said that he would just, and this would never happen, but he just said that he would always have Jahdae Barron and Makuba over on the same side as Jeremiah Smith. They're not gonna do that. I think that
someone threw out the Belichick idea this week where
I talked about that on the show too, where you bracket Smith with Muhammad, and then you just put Jahdae man on Egbuka. But here's the thing, Catch. If we see that, it's just going to be. Do you think that the circumstances warrant them doing something different than they've done all season? Or just kind of play one guy on one side where it starts out as the boundary, and then if it turns to the field, just keep him over there, and they generally just kind of stay on their side through a series, unless there've been a couple games where they've kind of gone back and forth. But I'm always trying to correlate that. Does that have to do with the wide receiver they're following? And I can't ever really figure it out as I'm watching these games back and charting them exactly why they've been doing it.
Anwar, here's what I've said to that.
I'm sorry. Let me say specifically, I can't tell why they're doing it when it's been Jahdae Barron and when it's been Manny Muhammad. I can always tell why they're doing it when it's been Gavin Holmes, because they will move Gavin Holmes to the field side every single time.
Jahdae Barron, Thorpe Award winner.
Yeah.
Best player at his position in America. All I can tell you is as a Cowboys fan, when we had Deion Sanders, the number 1 cornerback in the world, and the Cowboys played the 49ers, my expectations were, you're going to put that guy on Jerry Rice. And it has nothing to do with Larry Brown. It has everything to do with the fact that we've got Deion Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
And when Deion played for the 49ers, his ass was on Michael Irvin all day, and it might not would bust him up, but it would still be Deion, and Deion would still make big plays. I just don't know what the purpose is of having the best player in the sport at the position and to not do everything you can to treat him like a nuclear weapon as opposed to a piece of the defense. So I don't know. I think I've talked myself into, what I'll regret is if after this game, Jeremiah Smith goes for like $150 and 2 touchdowns, and you didn't put your best player on him the entire time.
Especially with not to say that Manny Muhammad's not good, but he's struggled a little bit in these last couple games.
Well, teams have decided that's the poison they'll drink. They'll pick some Manny Muhammad, and
for better or for worse, I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's bad, but just that's kind of what's happened.
It's funny, Anwar. And I don't want to – I only say this because, part of when we do these shows, we're supposed to provide insight that people wouldn't otherwise know and hear. It's really interesting what's happened to Muhammad in the last couple of weeks as teams have – Cade Klubnik decided outright throwing at 5. And then they – and I showed this week – God, I have to go back and look at the numbers for my 10 thoughts from the weekend. But I think he was – up until the A&M game, he hadn't been targeted more than 4 times in any game all season. And he'd only had 21, according to Pro Football Focus, he'd only been targeted, I think, 21 times. And in the last 4 games, A&M went after him 7 times. Georgia went after him, I want to say like 4 or 5 times. And then both Clemson and Arizona State targeted him. And so the numbers have been like 8, 7, 6. Like teams are just coming after him. But they didn't do it all year long. There was that discussion of Muhammad as a potential portal player. And look, the season's not over. I mean, in theory, it could still happen. But Muhammad was a guy that was being discussed publicly, partially because he was discussing it publicly on social media, like just communicating about NIL stuff. And I was like, well, maybe Manny Muhammad will go into the portal and test out his value. I had somebody from Texas say, well, look, if Manny wants to do that, he can do that. Because we think he's a really good player, but nobody thinks that he's elite on the Texas side. That this was just something that somebody was mentioning to me behind the scenes. And I was like, God, he's a 5-star. You guys have paid him a bunch of NIL money. He's going to be a 2-year starter, but they don't think he's a first-round type of guy. And this was before teams started throwing his way. This is when, quite honestly, it looked like, I think you guys might be wrong. Like, he's had a pretty badass season. And now here we are at the end, and teams have decided, you know what? Yeah, we're going to throw it 5 and just take our chances. They're having some success. He hasn't played terrible, but it's stuck in my head the last few weeks that internally, there are at least some people internally in the program that view Malik Muhammad as not quite on the level of some of the other guys in that secondary, specifically Barron for sure. But I don't think they think he's as good as some of the safeties. And, you know, I think there was a sense that, like, you know, if Malik Muhammad decided he wanted to chase $1 million, we might not be in the market for that. And I was like, oh, I would not have guessed that. And in the last couple of weeks, he has looked less like a guy that you'd pay $1 million to be your starting corner on a top 5 team than maybe just a month ago.
And that's not to say he's bad. Like,
right.
Right. It's just,
I think he's an NFL player, but you know what? Is he a 4th round pick or a 5th round pick, or is he a 1st round pick? And all I'm saying is that internally, I've had people tell me they think it's more of a mid-round selection for him, that they don't think he'll test well, that there's some questions about his suddenness. God, if that view is shared by Sark or Kwiatkowski for that matter, because those aren't the people that told me this, then yeah, man, I'm probably having Jahdae Barron follow.
That's Jeremiah Smith. I mean, then that's something we're going to be able to see just right off the bat. It'll be an interesting thing to see and just watch. But because I think you're right, they should. Yeah.
Last page, and then we'll wrap this thing up. We've already been going for an hour. I tell you what, everybody good?
Well, I got to show the people the way that they're going to be feeling during this.
Oh, you have it?
I went to the Rose Bowl on YouTube and screenshotted it.
I
would show the actual video where I can take my hands and throw them up in the air, my fists or stuff, but we can't do that because of because of
copyright stuff.
Copyright, but we're allowed to show a still image. So that's Mr. Living and OK Sucks next to me, probably in right about the same pose as I am with his hands behind his
I did not know that.
Yeah. So
how old were you in this picture?
Let's see. So that would have been 2010.
No, this is 2004. Or January 1st, 2005.
Oh, so I'd have been just out of college. So probably like I don't know, probably like 25 or something, 24, 25.
You don't know how old you were? I gave you the year, 2005.
Okay, 2005, I've been 20, probably 25. 25.
Okay.
So that's like, I can't believe that's like 20 years ago now.
It is literally 20 years ago in a few days.
Yeah, they're saying I went through a whole 12-pack. That wasn't all I went through that day, man. Those were some hazy days. He wasn't working for Orange Bloods, but he was Al Del Greco on the website.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knew him. Like, in real time, when that popped up on the screen on Orange Bloods, it was like, there's Al Del Greco, literally before the biggest kick in Texas history. All the conversation turned toward a young Alex Dunlap, gripping with tension.
Yeah. There's no.
Hey,
I wasn't any less tense at that same stadium the very next year, Catch, or whatever that was.
More tense.
Yeah.
Catch, we have 4 super chats that we never got to.
Okay, I've been on the design page of Restream, and I haven't even paid any attention. So let's knock them out. $1.99 from Michael. This is basically the CFP championship game. 1,000% agree. 1,000%. This feels like in the old days when the NFC, the Cowboys and the 49ers would play, and it was like, whatever. Bills, Chargers, Steelers, whoever you want to put, and Chargers, whoever you want to match up with the big boys. I think we all know where we're going to go in those picks next week, no matter who wins this game. S. Roan says, I'm concerned about the Ohio State defense. Seeing how Texas struggled against Georgia and Ohio State is even better on defense. Completely fair. S. Roan, I do not have either of these teams getting 18 points in this game. So, yeah, I'm with you. I expect both of these defenses to dominate. What am I missing, Anwar? I saw those two.
Well, I just keep seeing people keep saying in the chat, like, I thought Ottawa was supposed to be in Arlington. I thought he was supposed to be here. And I'm just like, hey, I got some things to handle.
Yeah, he was in Arlington like 5 minutes ago. He's back in Austin.
They have this thing called cars.
They do.
It's a crazy thing, but they have these things called cars. It allows you to do a whole
and
lot of
Anwar has
things.
this thing called a right foot, and it makes that car go really fast when he needs it to. Thomas says, for $9.99, thank you, Thomas. Buy or sell if Colin Simmons gets 4 sacks, Longhorns win. Well, yes. Thomas, I've got the Longhorns winning, and I've got Simmons with 2 sacks in this game.
I mean, you got to figure that, like, what are they going to have? 11 drives, 12 drives? Sacks are drive killers, man. You take 4 of those right out of – yeah, man. I think it's certainly a great sign.
I wish they had I would love some defensive player. I'd love to have I would take every week. I'd be on like Colin Simmons more on the sacks if PrizePicks put defensive players, which is interesting that they don't, because I play a bunch of soccer on PrizePicks and they always have defensive stuff.
You can get in the NFL. Maybe they'll expand that to college soon. I'm
just telling you, I'd be a sucker. See, PrizePicks ought to do this. I know there's a PrizePicks people who watch the videos because they change the picks all the time. Like, I see you guys working. Add in a Colin Simmons sack number, and I promise you I'll take the more every single week, and you guys will probably make more money on me than I'll make off of you, but I'm dying to play it. I think we're caught up on Super Chats. I've gone up and down.
You got all 4? You got 4?
No, but I only see 3.
Hold on. I counted 4.
There was Michael, My Business, which we did. There was the S. Roan, concerned about the Ohio State defense. There was the one that we just did from Thomas for $9.99 in the Colin Simmons sack. And you know what? Boom. Here we go. From Brian, $1.99. Way to squeeze that $2 in, Brian. Come on. Follow Thomas's lead. $9.99. Quinn has to be able to hit the deep ball. Yeah, I disagree, Brian.
No.
It'd be nice. But what if neither quarterback is able to hit the deep ball? And again, Brian, the 2 best units left in the playoffs are Texas and Ohio State's defenses. I see them thriving and not getting punked out.
And the thing is, Catch, the deep ball doesn't necessarily have to be a 50, 60-yard pass for Sarkisian. It could be something as simplistic as a screen pass that a guy takes it a really long way. And that is how a lot of times how you get your long passing plays. It's not the, 50, 60 yards in the air kind of thing.
Well, we know Quinn sucks throwing the deep ball. But you know what? If Isaiah Bond is healthy, your deep ball this week might be Isaiah Bond on a slant and let him go. Like, if he's really back and he's bringing 4.3 speed dimension, because Isaiah Bond's convinced he's going to go to the combine and be the fastest player there. And I've even had people mention, do you think he's going to break Xavier Worthy's combine record? And I was like, come on, guys.
Good luck.
Yeah. Come on. But it speaks to how fast people think that Isaiah Bond is, if that would even get uttered out loud. And Texas has not had – go back and watch Texas early in the season on offense when they were able to just get Bond the ball. Go back and watch that Florida game when they thought he was healthy and they got him back involved and he's running end arounds and just changing the game. I don't know why I'm putting this up, but Anwar, this kind of made me laugh.
Cars are a myth.
They're not though, man, because I promise you Anwar just used his.
I can promise you from Irving to Cedar Park, trust me. I definitely went past the buggy. I can promise you can look on my Twitter from last night and literally you can get on Orange Bloods right now and you can see about 1,800 words from there.
Dude, that was such a good war room. I don't know that I'm doing anything. I might just.
My fear was if I saved it, then maybe someone else is going to get ahead and then they'll put it out. And now everybody's like, saying this guy posted this. And I'm like, oh, shit, let me just post this tonight and just get it out the way.
Kyle Flood saying that he, quote, I don't know if I've resisted the portal. Kyle.
That cowboy hat's on pretty tight.
Cut off the circulation.
I was like, yeah, resisting. Like, I wouldn't say I resist. You know what it sounded like to me, Catch? What he sounded like he was trying to say is, we'll be open for business this offseason more so than we've been before. That's how I took it.
I actually agree with you, but it was so absurd to think that in 2021 and 2022, when they really needed to take guys and they weren't, it felt like because here's the thing, Anwar and I did like a million shows where we talked about the need to take offensive linemen in the portal, and it never happened. And now Kyle's like, I wouldn't say we you haven't done it, Kyle. You have resisted. That literally is the definition of resist. You've never done it. All right, guys, like, comment, subscribe to the page. We'll be back in an hour with House Divided. I literally got to call Chad and figure out what our show at noon looks like. Get your prize picks in. Play 5, get 50. Use that code Orange Bloods. Get paid, man. It's as simple as that. We've told you the picks from tomorrow night that we like. Good luck, and we'll see you soon right here on Orange Bloods Live. Later.